were you spying on?
I'll never tell.
Good evening, Neil. My name is Nigeria Chambers. I'm from Big Go Belt Media. Thank you for your time
Hey,
today. Very excited to talk about your new project,
thank you.
Inheritance, coming to theaters January 24th. My friend, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah.
Okay, first question I want to get about is your collaboration with your cinematographer, Jackson. One thing about this film, and I am a huge found footage like fanatic, and this film seemed to really hybrid between giving us that emotion, but also really uniquely doing its own thing. Where did you kind of land that vision for this? Like, how do you sort of say, here's how I want it to be shot, and this is
Yeah.
what it's going to be, sort of?
Yeah. Well, it was going to be that way from the beginning, and it's not really found footage. It's basically what I was looking for. The story comes from at the end during COVID, the beginning of COVID. Most filmmakers wanted to kind of do two people in the woods or something
Yeah.
like that. That was like a safe way to shoot. And my instinct, which was crazy, was like, oh, I want to go around the world. And I had read a New York Times article about a guy that was like a journalist making like a journey from like Serbia to France or something like that. And in like April, and the EU borders are all supposed to be open, and suddenly there's like armed guards at all the borders, and then you'd go into a city and it'd be empty. And I was like, I want to see that. And I don't want to just do a documentary about it. I want to create a narrative that lives in there. So I wrote
Wow.
something with a guy named Olen Steinhauer, who's a spy novelist. And I thought, well, the only way that we would be able to do that would be to, we couldn't bring a whole big film crew during COVID. We could shoot it on an iPhone. And that
Yeah.
way you get to see the way the world is. You get to see the way the new normal is without everybody looking at you. And so, but it's hard to get films made and it takes time. And so by the time we got it made, things had opened up a little bit. Things still a little weird, but I felt the story still worked. And so we continued, to keep this conceit of wanting to see the world. So the idea of the iPhone was not a gimmick,
Yeah.
not merely a substitution for a motion picture camera, but it gave us access. It allowed us
Yeah.
to walk through a crowded Cairo market and nobody would look at us because everybody's got a phone and shooting for social media or whatever. So
Yeah.
that's where it came from, and it just allowed us to kind of have a completely different energy and a completely different visual language and sort of narrative language for the movie, which I was really interested in pursuing.
That's brilliant. I truly, and I hope everybody watching this really understand like the genius behind that. And considering you've done so many different films, different genres, and wore different hats in all of those different productions, I gotta wonder when you landed on doing it this way, did you reach out to Apple at all to kind of consult? I don't want to say consult them, but kind of like tip the hat, like, hey, we're getting ready to do something that obviously is going to bring more recognition to their products
Yeah.
here.
Well, what's interesting is that we did talk to Apple, and because we sort of messed a little bit with the innards of the phone to kind of make it better for us. But but strangely, when we went to them to say like, well, do you want to buy this movie? They were like, no, 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 we want to be big film. We want Apple TV to be showing big films and things like that.
Yeah.
Like small iPhone. And so it was like, really? Okay, whatever. So um, yeah.
And it's funny too, because now you look on every billboard, what do they say? Shot on the iPhone. Look at
Yeah,
that
right,
here.
right.
Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah.
Shady
But they
business
wanted they
there.
wanted Apple TV to like be Hollywood blockbuster TV.
Yeah. And obviously, I mean, listen, this worked towards your benefit in a way that I'm sure you, because you work with so many different talent throughout your journey here. But like having Phoebe and then really tapping into Maya's psychology during this journey, it was no better way but to be up close and personal with her. I thought like even the scene inside the airport terminal where she, does the little thing with the glass is genius, but it was only just a small nugget of things to come. Almost
Yeah.
essentially her really becoming intact of her inner roots here. Talk to me about, when you established this plan, working with the iPhone, obviously going on a world vacation here, but also doing the work. Talk to me about the collaboration with her and allowing her to really express herself through emotes, storytelling through emotes almost at times.
Yeah. Well, look, we'd seen Phoebe in, Bridgerton and in Fair Play, which hadn't come out by the time we were shooting. But we, and she's very sort of more proper and conservative in those movies. But met Phoebe and I sensed that she sort of had a badass quality to her, and that she had a toughness to her and a wit and a caustic wit and a, and a sort of an enterprising quality too. And so I thought that she'd be perfect for it and kind of unexpected actually as well. So, and I told her about the project and, everybody I told about like how I wanted to do it, they were like, okay, because it was a lot to take on. And, but, she was up for it. And, and I'm immensely immensely grateful to her for that because, it was kind of a crazy thing that not everybody would be willing to do.
Yeah, very ambitious during the pandemic, without a
Yeah.
doubt. Without a doubt. And to stay on board the entire time, because we've seen productions get shot down and all
Also,
sorts of
just,
different
it
things.
wasn't so much that we were worried about the pandemic. It was more that we were like, she was going to go on an airplane and we were going to steal scenes on an airplane. Every airplane we shot on, we stole shots that she was in. So she could conceivably, she's a known person and not that everybody was recognized her because she had sort of a funky haircut, but she could, if it got out there, she could have hurt her in certain ways. So
True that, true that. Listen, I do have to wrap. I gotta say that you're entirely right. Phoebe is such a badass. And if you had any question about it, especially at the very end when we get the title drop, that's when it just kind of gave me chills. Like, God, she was so good at this. So
yeah.
listen, now I have to ask you here, because the film is titled Inheritance and is obviously about a very interesting relationship between the daughter and father here and all sorts of different other things around with that. Just really quick, if you could plug, why is this the film that you want folks to go check out in theaters January 24th?
Well, I think it's interesting because it is called Inheritance. It's less about the money and it's more about who are we? Are we, are we, in her case, is she her father's daughter? Her father's a little bit of a black sheep and a thief. And while her mother is more of a saint, and which one is she? That's the question that is about inheritance. And then beyond that, it asks, who are we as individuals in this moment in time? What are we responsible? Who are we responsible for? Who are we accountable to beyond ourselves, to put ourselves out there? Sam has answers. He doesn't feel like he's accountable to anybody but himself. She's smart enough to know that there's more than that. However, she's sort of beaten down and weary and maybe she shouldn't care, And so it's a big question for all of us. It's a big question for America. We've always been like leaders and loners, activists and isolationists. And that's in a way what she's dealing with. So, that's kind of what the movie's about.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today, Neil. Inheritance in theaters January 24th. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.